Hey friends, Tom
and Sarah,
and we wanted to wish you
Happy 2024.
It's really exciting to be launching into this new year. We have a lot of exciting things ahead, and we wanted to let you guys know about a new series that we're going to start here on the channel. Typically, as you have seen, my channel has been focused on the handyman aspects of homesteading. At least that's how I've tried to put out content focused on those topics. A lot of it has been related to the wood chopper lately because I finally got the plans out for that. And then just other things that I could get out quickly. But we wanted to do a series where we will be breaking down where we have been, different states we've been in, different properties we've been on, and why and how we've done all that.
We've loved all the properties that we've been on, and each one has been specifically in a way that has been able to teach us something new about homesteading, from going from raw property to houses that need to be completely renovated, to being in a place that not much renovation has needed, but we've been able to focus then on the outdoor stuff, like focusing on gardens and on animals, and being able to get those systems and learn about those in ways which we haven't been able to before.
So for those who haven't followed us on our journey or weren't aware, we started out in the valley of Spokane, Washington, which was semi-town. It wasn't out in the country, but it wasn't in town either.
It was on a half acre.
Edge. A little starter home. That was our first home we bought right when we got married, and we were there 4 years fixing it up, and because it was very rough when we got it, and our intention was not to flip it, but that's what we ended up doing basically over the course of those 4 years. On that property, we learned a lot about working in the middle of a remodel and a lot of things not to do.
And living with babies in the middle of a remodel.
Yeah, we literally, on our wedding night, we walked into a house where it was the main core of the center of the house was bare studs with a wide open hole in the ceiling to the attic, and
the water.
Plaster dust everywhere basically.
And the water.
The next was 2 or 3 mornings later we woke up to our drain water backing up in the basement. So we were very much in the middle of it. Learned a lot at that house, and thankfully, because of just God's timing and how he sovereignly directed everything, the market was such that when we ended up selling that place, we sold it for double what we had originally bought it for. And so it really set us up well for the next step of our homesteading journey, which at that point we weren't planning to homestead necessarily. We were just living life, figuring married life out, had a baby on the way, honeymoon baby, and working on the things that we already had going.
But then in 2015, a big windstorm happened, and it hit Spokane, and we were unprepared for it. So when it happened, our power was out for 4 days before Thanksgiving, and it was 20 degrees outside, and the house got colder and colder, and we only had electric heat. So we realized that was not the best way to be going about living our lives.
Yeah, that windstorm ripped off a lot of people's roofs, including part of ours. Ended up being a blessing later, but we didn't know it at the time. So in the aftermath of that storm and through that winter, it got us thinking to how we might be able to realize our dreams of being in the country at some point. We started looking at the housing market and realizing what it was doing, that it was climbing a lot since it was the 4 years before. We realized that there was an opportunity where we could realize that dream of being out in the country a lot sooner than we thought. However, the market was so high. We got a lot for our place, but we also had to pay a lot, and so what we could afford at that time was raw land. Through the 12 months that we ended up living on that property in a 32-foot RV with 2 toddlers and a newborn and a puppy Great Pyrenees, we learned a lot about that whole process of putting in infrastructure on raw land, hauling water, then setting up a well, setting up septic, heating a trailer using a wood stove, building a shipping container shop. we had an adventure. It was we learned a ton.
Yeah.
But through the course of that, through that next winter, we realized that, okay, we've had enough fun doing this kind of a thing. We'd really like to start raising some animals, growing a garden, and focusing more on that rather than just focusing on surviving and trying to build a house from scratch.
And it was fun going through that time. Like that was a fun looking back at those. It was fun, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
wasn't as horrible as you would assume or imagine that living in a trailer would be. It was actually really enjoyable. We had everything that we needed right there. But as we knew, as the kids grew older, it would become smaller and smaller
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. We also had things happen like the Blackwater tank freezing full
3
pretty
days
much-
before Christmas.
Yeah, and that didn't thaw out until spring. So there were a lot of things where one big thing that I learned there was the value of any bit of shelter that exists on a property when you first walk onto it is very, very valuable because you didn't have to build it. We'll see if the roosters let us record this part here. So after those 12 months on that raw property that we were developing in the Athol Spirit Lake area of North Idaho, we traded that property for a place down south, closer to St. Mary's, Idaho, that already had all the infrastructure and buildings on the property, but most of them needed a lot of work. One of the things we did get to start doing though on that property, even though stuff needed work, we got to start raising animals. We got our first laying hens, at least the first ones since we'd been married.
And we got some rabbits, which was really fun to do.
Yep. And we learned the value. That's when we learned about setting up a rack-in house, combining chickens and rabbits together. And we also, oh my gosh. we also learned how much you don't have to have things perfectly set up to get your first animals. It is good to be aware of what they will need and what you need to provide them with, but you won't learn a lot of that unless you just start. One aspect of that property though was that it was in the middle of the forest, and this is like timber country where they were harvesting the forest for making lumber.
In the mountains.
In the mountains. It was a very rural property, and the amount of space we had to actually run animals on was fairly limited. We were starting to think about getting some sheep or goats. We wanted to get a family milk cow eventually, and we were just realizing how much we would end up needing to feed hay to keep those animals alive. So if we could end up with a place that had more pasture land, grass could be the free feed that a lot of our animals could survive off of.
And as much as we loved the mountains and the beauty of living in that place, we wondered what it was like if for all the other homesteaders who lived where it was warm, so we could have a longer garden growing season.
And so I could spend less time plowing snow, which is what I spent a lot of time doing.
Yes. So we started looking in warmer areas.
So that's when we took an exploratory trip down here to south central Missouri, where we ended up finding this property, which is 10 acres of mostly open land that was flat instead of sloped, and was very much ready to run animals in the pasture, to do small animals in the yard around the house. And the house itself did not need much work. It was pretty much just walk in, move in, ready.
Yeah. Which was a change for us.
Yeah, it's been really nice. We've been here 2.5 years, and it's been really, really nice living in a place that didn't need a lot of work, so we could focus a lot more on doing stuff out on our property. We've spent a lot of time in survival mode in past places that we've lived, and this place has been a nice break, and we've been able to enjoy intentionally investing more in the things we wanted to do, not just the things we had to do to survive.
Yeah. As we look back on this last year, we're thankful for the just over 2 years that we have had down here, and all the things that we've learned, and all of the new things that we've tried and started, and things that we realized that weren't for us in homesteading, like raising goats and pigs.
Yep. So a lot of this series that we're starting with this video is going to be focusing on these 3 properties that we've been on and all the things we've learned on those places and getting between them. A lot of the things we've learned about real estate, buying a place, fixing up a place to sell,
Moving.
We have a
With the
lot of
family.
stuff about moving and setting up infrastructure. I even have a 60-minute long masterclass on how best to set up a homesteading property, whether you're doing it from scratch or fixing up an existing place. You can go to the link down in the description below to watch that for free. That's kind of a boiled down list of a lot of the lessons that we learned through these different, that was actually just through those first 2 properties we were on. But there's a lot more we want to share about our story and how God has led us through these different places and helped us learn all that we've learned thus far.
Yeah.
So in this coming year, we have a lot of exciting stuff ahead, and we can't wait to show those things to you. But for now, have a good beginning of your 2024, and we will see you on the next video.
Bye.